Okay. Hey, everyone. This is Dale Berkeball, and today we're going to be doing another episode of Living Your Best Life, talking about what it's like to live your best life. And we always have a guest every week when we're doing this series, and I am doing this because I think everybody has a story to tell. I think everybody can be an inspiration, and so I try and bring some interesting people on. Please join me today as we welcome Julia Edmonds Brazier, who's going to be with us today. And welcome to the show. Should I go with Julie here or
Let's
Julia?
go with Julie, please. That's Julia when I'm like in trouble.
Okay, Julie. So, welcome to the show. And if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us where you're at. And yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so I am right now. I'm on my patio in Columbus, Ohio. It's really hot outside, but I haven't been outside since this morning. So happy to be here in this space. And this is my hometown. I was gone for over 30 years and I moved back 18 months ago. I'm retired. And basically, the pandemic sent me packing. And my field of interest was and still is early childhood education. And I have mm, almost 30 years tried to focus on equity, justice, anti bias issues within that field. So I still work in a nonprofit with my daughter. And can I shout out the name?
Sure.
Okay, it's called ATL for Atlanta. ATL Parent Like a Boss Incorporated, and we are a group of, at this moment, Black women who we work to focus on literacy, not in the classic sense, but literacy, how Black people especially we learn and interpret and understand through our bodies, and the way that we present this information, the way that we advocate, the way that we resist is through play. We play as a form of resistance, very much from a feminist, womanist approach. So this is something that I do with my daughter. Okay, enjoy. Um, saying goodbye for a moment. And what else? And I found a second calling once I retired as a yoga teacher. What else? The third one, three things. So three legs to my little stool here. So yoga teacher again. I am that thing is relatively new as a teacher, but I've been a long time yoga practitioner. But I am actively seeking ways to resist and to bring yoga into the Black community because it hasn't been as accessible. And then I am a creative spirit. I sew, knit, crochet, whatever. I make things, and that's what I'm doing. That's the stool I'm sitting on.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful stool. It sounds like you're doing some awesome work. So that's really, really exciting. I'm glad to hear some of the different things. Now, as far as the yoga, is the yoga for all ages, or is that sort of focused on children as well? I think I've seen you do some like little book readings and
Uh,
things like that.
so definitely all ages. Um, and I can't, in a former life, all through high school and college, I was a dancer as well.
Oh,
So I, I get inspiration from children and how they move their bodies. And so it's just so much fun. I do miss working with young children. So I actually have a children's yoga class scheduled to start in September. And part of going back to the parent lab, the parent like a boss thing, part of I haven't been very active with it, but the story time, okay, my books and stories that originated, of course, from my work, but doing, I mean, I called it story time like a boss, was kind of how I kept my sanity early on in the pandemic. And so I just started grabbing books that reflected children of color and just normal settings and stuff. I just started reading a book aloud every day, just on my Facebook page. And then we started incorporating it into our parent lab work. And so now I'm incorporating it into my yoga. And so I've been known to do adult classes, but reading a children's book because, I mean, there's so much wisdom there in children's stories. So absolutely. And I guess I'm working my way downward because I started out with adults and I do teach adults, um, preferably older adults. But what I really want to do is teach yoga to preschoolers. It's kind of what I was doing before I became a certified teacher because in my work I was mentoring people who had licensed childcare programs in their homes. And so I'm going in and mentoring, and there were a few who were also interested in yoga. And so we would do yoga with the kids as well. And so, yeah. So, yes, yes, long answer to a short question.
Very good. Very good. Um, so, with this program, as you probably know, with some of the stuff I do, my uh, company name is Hellagood Life. And so I think there's all sorts of different interpretations on what that means. And so one of the questions that I always ask is, what does a Hellagood Life mean to you?
Mm, wow. And so obviously you see already that I'm very wordy. Um, how a good life is for me having found your path, like finding it, recognizing it, following it, um, just kind of letting that happen because you know you're in alignment with either God, the universe. And so then I think I'm kind of close to that path myself. But I think it's like if you know your calling and you answer it and you follow it, then it feels almost like like the way is opening for you. And so you you notice little things, you appreciate little things, and the bigger things aren't like tackling you. Not that they don't happen, and not that you don't have seasons of you know lately it's been some despair, but that you know that there's something better and you know that you're working toward it. To me, that's when people talk about living your best life, they think of like you're out there partying, you're traveling, you're always happy. But to me, it's I know I'm on my path. I'm being rewarded intrinsically. I'm I'm content. That's what I would say is a hello good life.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. I think I would agree with you. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of different interesting thoughts that come out with that, and but I like the idea of path and that intrinsic piece. I think sometimes we do think about all that external stuff, the partying and traveling and like all that kind of stuff, which is there's nothing wrong with that. However, if we don't have our internal work done, boy, all that stuff can go sideways.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So I have this sort of oddball question that I kind of do where I ask three questions and you can pick any one of them or you can answer all of them. Depends on what sort of sits with you, what resonates, or how you're feeling today. Okay. So the first question is, where do you find the most joy? The second question is, what inspires you? And the third question is, what is your superpower? So any of those strike a chord for you?
Actually, they all three do, and maybe not as long-winded as the other ones. Um, the first two are like the same. I I find the most joy in the presence of my children. They're all adults, and then now two grandchildren, and so I find the most joy, and they inspire me. I, they're amazing people, as even as adults, and so yeah. So that answer is one and the same, and that made me forget what the third question was.
what what is your superpower?
Oh my God. Um, I think, though I'm not always there, but I think I do have a superpower of, um, I'm going to combine like creativity and calmness in the storms. And sometimes it takes creativity to be calm. But yeah, I think creativity is the biggest one, really. But I'm a pretty I'm super emotional, but I think
Mm,
that's different than being like calm, if that makes any sense. I mean, I cry, I get chills over whatever. Um, so I'm really free with my emotions, but I think that's different than being like, able to still handle business.
right, right. Awesome, awesome. Well, I love that creativity, and so uh, you do all kinds of creativity. It sounded like there were a couple things that you did. So what is your favorite creative outlet?
Mm. Ah. Okay, it's gonna be a tie. It's gonna be a tie between dancing, moving my body, and
Awesome.
sewing. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful.
So they're both my happy places. And sometimes I do both at the same time.
There you go. Awesome. Okay. So one of the next questions that I usually ask is, what is one of your biggest successes or an area that you're most proud of in life?
Ooh. Am I just being a total mom? Because I mean, my default answer is always going to be my kids. Because, like I said, they're amazing. Um, but then after my kids, I'm I'm most proud of the fact that I honestly, to use a church term, which not I'm like not a super churchy person, but I honestly spent time when my two oldest sons, who are in their mid 30s, when they were very young, um, discerning what kind of what kind of work I wanted to do.
Mm,
Like, do they still publish that book? What color is your parachute? Like they used to like reissue like every year they would update this book, but it's um and there are other methods like reading Stephen Covey books and things like that. But just I literally did some self study to really find out what I already knew, like what kind of work was the best for me, and then I serendipitously was led to a career in early childhood education, and I'm just really proud of that because I, I've just consistently been reinforced in that this was my calling, this was the work I was good at, and just continued with it, especially as a trainer. So not I wasn't a preschool teacher. I was almost always training adults,
mm,
and but I was always able. I was often in spaces with children, child care director, YMCA stuff, and everything. But it just, every job I went to, because I moved a lot, I was a Navy wife, I felt like the previous experiences were building to it. So I am really proud. First time this question has ever come to me, but I'm really proud that I intentionally sought out a path, and then I trusted it all the way. And there's definitely a spiritual aspect to it, and and even in my retirement, I'm still able to be on that path. So I that's some pretty badass stuff. But I'm like, what? I hadn't thought about it before, you know. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I love it. I love it. So first off, you mentioned your kids, and as a parent, parenting is serious work, and so I give you some kudos for that, because that's good stuff, and pouring into our kids is important, and all that stuff. And then how wonderful is it when you um, when you find a career or a direction or a path that kind of just really resonates your whole career and then beyond. So that sounds really pretty amazing.
Thank you
Um,
for that. Thank you.
so so then we get to one of the what was one of the biggest hurdles or challenges that you've overcome in your life?
Hmm. I'm just gonna have to go with a very messy divorce.
Mhm.
and so, and the biggest challenge of that was, for me was, even though I'm not really, I wouldn't say I'm a hard practicing Catholic, but all of the programming that I grew up with, and many of us grow up with, around divorce, and the whole stay in your marriage, don't stay in your marriage, all those kind of things. Um, Guilt over, did you do the right thing? Should I have not stayed in the marriage for the kids, or should I? Was it good that I did stay in the marriage for the kids? So I think that, and it's been 6 or 7 years now, and I still go back to the wondering, the doubt, maybe some guilt, but just in the throes of it, the financial part, the leaving things behind, all of that, that would be the biggest. But I think, and even my kids tell me, um, that both I and my ex husband, who's now passed on, but,
Mm,
um,
sorry.
we were better for it.
Oh.
We were happier, better people, not together, and my kids can afford the counseling they need. So, I mean, and the thing, I keep telling you, they're awesome. They continue to love us both in spite of everything we may have put them through. So, yeah, but that's, yeah, by far the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's I think that's wonderful that the kids love everyone in spite of whatever. I
Mhm.
mean, that's an important thing for I think that comes some of that comes from the parenting. So I think you probably did pretty well there. uh,
Hopefully.
and yeah, well, I am sorry that you went through that and whatever, but I am. It's always exciting to hear that your kids think that you're better when you were separated, and you guys feel like you were better when you were separated, and things like that. It's important to find
Yeah.
our way.
Mhm.
So here's one of the challenges that I ask of my guests. What is one tip that you would give to someone for living their best life?
Mm. Don't do it alone. Yeah. Community is everything. Everything. We were the we were wired. We're wired to be in community. So I just don't isolate yourself. Don't do it alone. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Well, I
Good
think
questions. I'm gonna go write in my journal now. My gosh.
well, that must be one of the reasons that we're connected, because I love community. I love connection. I think it's so important. I went a long way uh, isolated for a long time because I'm self-employed and sort of did
Mm,
my own thing and whatever, and really bought into the whole independence, kind of
mm,
whatever, and that's great on some levels, but it can take you into some bad places. So
right.
I
Right.
think it takes a village, so to speak. So,
Absolutely. And some of that's cultural. We've been programmed to a lot of that. I can do it. I can do this on my own. So yeah, but it doesn't have to be so hard. I don't. And which, by the way, is I love that. I feel like you recognize kindred spirits, and so yeah. So I would definitely. I'm glad that I don't even remember how or where, but I'm glad that we were connected because yeah, I do recognize you as a kindred spirit.
Yeah, yeah. Likewise, likewise. It's
Thank
been
you.
great having you in my circle, and this has been great to be able to actually talk and whatever. Now we're connected on Facebook, and uh, I've followed you for a little while and really feel like I know you pretty well, but
Mhm.
I haven't really met you. Or
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's great being able to have a conversation with you.
Right. It's because our groups meet at the same time on the same day and time. So we haven't been able to come together in discussion though. So there's that. I've made some really, really close connections with people from being able to meet at least on Zoom and all. And so for you, I hope you keep doing this because even one on one, it it's uplifting. So yeah, so I'm happy. I'm happy you're doing it. I'm proud of you for doing it, and I hope you keep on keeping on.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just really want to celebrate people, and I
Mhm.
guess really part of this is my frustration over the divisions that we're seeing in society now. I mean, we're
Mhm.
it's such a angry kind of
Yeah,
divisive world that we live in, and so we just need to love each other a little bit. So that's
absolutely.
what I'm trying to put out, a little positivity. So I appreciate you uh, seeing the value in this and being.
Oh, definitely. I think I'll have to. My phone's on a low battery, so it's not going to let me look it up. But I'm going to have to send you the link to the title of a book I just borrowed, on the Hoopla app from my library. But he's talking about that very thing about how, especially now, we've I don't want to use this in a way that is misunderstood, but tribal in a sense that we're pulling in and just we're pulling in toward ourselves and groups of only like-minded people, and how while we feel like that's helpful, it in the big picture it's harmful because then we become more narrow-minded, we become more narrow focused, and the way that we're going to save the world, whatever, heal, is really by connecting with people who are not like us and who do have different, it's the whole cancel culture and all of that, those things. Um, so it's really, I don't even know how it happened on the book, but it's very timely. So I'll share that with you
Oh yeah,
when I'm able to, when I charge my phone back up some. Yeah.
yeah, that sounds wonderful. I think it's funny because I'm doing this program, and it right now, because it's so early, it's been my handful of contacts and things like that. And so for the most part, the people that I'm interviewing are kind of in my space.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's a good thing because it's easy out of the gate. But yeah, but I would like to figure out whatever I'm doing to try and make connections in some of those other spaces, because I do think, like you're talking about in that book, we it's easy to get ourselves in those silos, stay with
Hmm.
like-minded people, and then cut out all the negative. And there's a lot of toxic people out there sometimes that we do need
Right.
to cut out or figure out how to work better or whatever. But it's challenging work.
Yeah, and I think also now whatever this work is, however we define our own work, I think it needs to be action oriented as well. You mentioned silos, and that's what triggered that thought because I you know, we do you do a book club. I love book clubs, and we have our
Right.
discussion meetings and things like that. Um, but I'm just really lately I'm the one going, okay, y'all, but what are we doing? What are we doing with this? Where are we going with this? What actions are we taking? What actions can we take? Even if it's to smile at the cashier or whatever, just to be a pleasant face, sometimes that simple. Onto what kind of actions are we, like, literally, are we taking political action? whatever is in our comfort level, but something, not just reading about it or watching it, but really extending a hand. You know, all those nice things they tell us to do, we should do them, and run and, like, seek out opportunities to do them. And yeah, it's
Right. And that, it's funny, especially like in the activism community. I think sometimes, we read these books and get inspired and get fired up or get educated. Sometimes we're unlearning all this stuff that we've been programmed to learn. Um,
hmm
and we get to an end of a book or whatever. And the biggest question then is, okay, so now what, right? That's
right,
so how can we apply that? And I think, sometimes we overcomplicate things, but I like what you're saying there as far as like it could be as easy as just smiling at the cashier, or I share like holding the door for people when I'm out, and different things like that
exactly,
where we can just be. We don't know these people are whatever, but showing up a little bit better is one small thing that anyone can do, right?
right, right, right. And it's just like, it was Monday when I was teaching a yoga in the park thing, and I was so crushed because this whole group of little boys went running by toward the playground, and it was just joy. And then the adult, the man who was with them, and he walked by, and I guess I was expecting the same level of joy from him, and I just kind of waved, and he just looked right through me. And
Hmm.
it was like I went up and then I went down, like,
Oh yeah.
and it just, so it could have been as simple. I mean, all he would, like, the nod. He could have done that little nod, and then I would have been okay. But he literally looked right through me. So it's little things like that. Like, I used to always tell my kids when they would tell me about somebody being just ugly. We'll just say, in the South they say being ugly, and I would say, okay, well, either remember how that feels or remember how that looked. So that's the lesson for you not to do that.
Right.
So it's just, um, he could have just been like, in his head thinking or whatever, and not really seeing me. So I have to give him that grace. But I went to, oh my gosh, he couldn't even wave. I went there with it. So,
Right.
but yes, makes a big deal. Makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's something, maybe that's part of that individualistic society that we're just kind of
I had to move the sun.
okay, uh, in our own world, or whatever, and don't even realize how disconnected we are from everyone else. I think
Yeah.
but I love what you're saying about with the lesson that you talk to your kids about. How does that? How can you show up differently? I mean, it sounds like you're an awesome parent. So
Oh, thank you.
I, I like hearing those kind of that kind of thought and those strategies, because if we all did that, maybe we could end bullying or just this disconnected piece or whatever. uh, I'm passionate about that community thing, so I keep going back there. But um, you know I feel we're all connected, so to harm someone else means I'm harming myself, is how I look at things. Now I don't succeed in that all
Right.
the
So we're
time,
not. Yeah, it's just a goal. It's a goal.
but it's a work in progress. So
Yeah. So there was a meme that I'm always sharing other people's stuff because I don't come up with things out of my own mind to write. But it was something. It was like somebody asked, I don't know, a guru or somebody, like, what can I do to help others? And the answer was, there is no other. Like,
right.
so I was like, okay, I really like that because, yeah, if we see it that way, then we're not going to have to see, because you know it's that golden rule stuff.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Well, and I think that that kind of ties into be the change you want to see in the world. I think
absolutely.
that's so important, because like I heard that all my life, right? And it's
hmm
resonated with me all my life, but it wasn't until I started on this path a little more serious that I was like, holy crap, to some degree that means work on me so I can show up better
hmm
and oftentimes we want to blame and shame and all this stuff of everyone. It's
Right.
everyone else's fault, but you know, if we do some of that internal work, we show up better, and then it can actually ripple out and all that stuff. So that's kind of
Hopefully. Yeah, that's the goal. Also with the what is it, Ubuntu, I am because we are. That's
right.
the like all the same flavor. I'm like whatever resonates. I'm always going to share them and reshare them because maybe there's someone who hasn't heard it before. You know, um, it's good stuff. And what someone just was saying in the meeting I just left, but they were talking about energy, um, and how it just circulates and recirculates. And so we can circulate the good energy or the bad, whichever we choose.
Right.
And I don't want too much of the bad. So yeah.
Very good. Well, um, so if anyone wanted to follow or connect with you, what's the best way for someone to find you?
um Probably just on Facebook. And I actually, so I'm reluctantly cultivating my online presence. So if you were to go to, I think, any of my pages now, if I've done it right, there's a link tree, and you can go there and kind of see where I am with
Okay.
other things. But it's like this is very new, like a week. But
Oh,
then I wake up and I'm like, oh, I didn't put LinkedIn on there. Oh, I didn't add. So, or should I add? Should this just be yoga? So it's a work in progress. And then the other thing is like you have too many sites, but it at least it's like you could go there and then you can choose if you want to see what I'm doing with yoga or whatever. Just know that none of them are very developed, but I'm just having fun with it. Probably find more stuff on my creative page, just because whenever I make something, I just post a picture of it, and it's like I'm not trying to sell anything.
uh-oh, did I lose you?
Yeah, I don't
It's kind of freezing up a little bit here.
okay.
Can you hear me okay? Are you
I hear you fine. I hear you fine. Yes.
okay? There, it looks like you're back. Okay.
Okay. And I'm gonna go inside just so I can be closer to the Wi-Fi box.
Okay.
So very cluttered background though. But I was just saying, if like on any of my pages, you should be able to see the link tree, and it should show you wherever else I am. So yeah.
Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was
Thank
awesome
you.
talking to you. I like hearing what you're doing, and um, I hope that some people watch this and are inspired and fired up by some of the things you're doing, or reach out, maybe ask some questions about yoga or whatever. Um, but thank you again
Thank
for doing it,
you.
and I always invite people to like, share, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe. And if you like some of the conversation we're talking about, please share it. Also, if you ever want to be on the show, just comment in the comments that, hey, this is something I'm interested in, and I'll reach out to you directly and we can have that conversation. But anyhow, it was a great conversation. So I really enjoyed talking to you, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm thinking of people to send your way. So yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. And thanks for yeah, my disorganized all of that. But
It's cool. It's cool.
yay. All right. Well, blessings to you. Thanks again.